Welcome to the FIsionaries podcast, sponsored by Alchemy. I'm your host, Jim Maroos. The FIsionaries podcast shines a light on financial institutions at the cutting edge of digital transformation, providing you with the tips and tricks to elevate your digital game no matter what size your organization is. I'm really excited to welcome Tim Ferrio, CTO of Team One Credit Union, to the FIsionaries podcast. With just under $750 million in assets, Team One faces an uphill battle competing against major banks with billions of dollars in their war chests to finance modern technologies and innovation. In this episode, we explore the unique opportunities and challenges small credit unions face in keeping pace with digital innovation and improving the experiences and engagement with members. We also uncover creative strategies that can help modest institutions like Team One punch above their weight class and take on the banking behemoths. As with many executives I interview for the FIsionaries podcast, our guest today has a long tenure at his credit union, moving through the ranks and filling many roles along the way. This provides a perspective beyond where he is today. So, Tim, before we discuss what makes Team One Credit Union unique, can you provide a little bit of a background on your organization and share a bit about your extensive career at Team One?
Yes. Good morning, Jim. So Team One Credit Union, founded over 80 years ago, originally as a credit union to support teachers in the city of Saginaw. I started with the credit union back in 2000. So I've been here as of next week. It'll be 23 years. And previous to that, I did 7 years for the Dow Chemical Company in their global data center. So I came into this space with not the traditional credit union background. I worked in the big data center space. When I first hired into the credit union, I did 12 years in IT and then moved on to be like the first systems analyst, the first member of the e-services department. So that's kind of my journey with the credit union.
Boy, a lot has changed since you started with the credit union. You became the chief technology officer in January of this year, shortly after the naming of a new president and CEO from outside Team One, but with a lot of knowledge of the Michigan credit union space. Can you walk us through your initial vision when you first stepped into the CTO role at Team One? And how is it different than it may have been 2 or 3 years ago if you had been named CTO at that point?
Well, 2 or 3 years ago, I mean, from my perspective, I kind of handled a very small boutique little group of e-services folks that were handling a lot of the member-facing technology. And so I think that experience kind of helped me have the right frame of mind as I moved into the CTO role. Talking to members, I hate to say boots on the ground, but that's what I was. I was taking member calls, helping them troubleshoot problems with their devices, getting their feedback and finding their pain points. And I think that puts me in a unique spot to be able to help grow the technology stack of the credit union, not only grow it, but make it better and more usable for the member.
So, there's all these ideas of what you should do and the prioritization of everything. So when you look at technology today and in the banking industry, I mean, there's so many choices, so many things that become priorities. But what's the biggest challenge that smaller credit unions such as yours face in competing digitally with the mega banks and technology giants?
Well, I think truly that comes down to budgets, right? Because you can't do everything all the time. You can't always be keeping up with the Joneses or any of the big banks that are in our area or nationally. So you have to be very targeted. You have to be very methodical in the way you approach things and look for opportunities that are going to provide the biggest bang for the buck, really. And that's not only from the budgeting money standpoint, but that's from the staff standpoint as well. You really have to be very careful with how you're utilizing staff, what projects you're tasking them with, and what things you want to try and tackle first.
It's interesting because when you look at it, there are so many things, but to a degree, the advantage you have is your size. So where have you found size to actually be an advantage over larger competitors?
Well, I think that the answer to that one is easy. It's really that we can be nimble. We are small enough to be agile and be able to kind of make changes more quickly, identify areas, maybe because we do have, such a tight connection with our membership, really just being able to get that feedback and then work to make whatever pain point or challenge that the member is having go away.
It is interesting because with a small organization, you're certainly closer to the member. And closer to the employee because there's not major stacks of people and all this, friction between the areas. But, with the industry changing so fast, how do you and your team determine where to set your priorities? How do you balance speed, scale, simplicity, cost, and obviously security?
Well, I think, in the digital space, security is paramount. Usability obviously needs to be there as well. But if the members lose faith in the security of our systems, we wouldn't be in business. So we need to maintain a laser focus on security. Now, as far as speed goes, yes, of course, these systems need to be available. They need to be, reacting quickly to when the members need services, regardless of what service they're trying to access. So always making sure that, first and foremost, these systems are safe and secure, but then really using that member feedback to, find areas where we need to increase speed or where we need to scale to better serve the membership.
So it's interesting, since COVID, the consumers become very aware of what can be done with data, insights, and technology. And while they may see it in their cars, they use a GPS system, or they may see it in their entertainment as they look at Netflix as opposed to DirecTV, or they may see it when they go out of town and stay at an Airbnb or take an Uber. The reality is what we're seeing today in the banking area is being driven by consumers that have a lot more awareness of what's possible. How does Team One view the choice between build, buy, or partner when you look to upgrade your technology and innovate?
Well, and again, this kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier. We don't always have the staff or the budget to build things from scratch. And so finding the right partners, and also, making the right choice of who you're going to partner with, where at in their product lifecycle they are, making sure that we're getting in with the right vendor. So really that vetting those vendors along the way and making sure that each one of them is where we need them to be now and that they're going to grow into what we want in the future. So we also have some offerings within our technology stack that are provided by some QSOs that we have a stake in. And so we really try to harness the power of those, in those conversations with those QSO partners, really helping to craft these solutions so that we make sure that they're fitting the needs of our membership and all of the other memberships of the partner credit unions. We feel like that kind of helps us to be able to craft those solutions and help make them better so that they can be used by more credit unions.
Well, as you said, any new innovation, any technology upgrade, it's going to take money. Do you break down what you're trying to solve for based on what you have budget for? For instance, you may be looking at how do I get new members to join your credit union? Well, you may look at it as a whole, or you may say, I need to provide digital services that make it easier to become a checking customer or a loan customer or something else. Do you break down what you're trying to solve for, or do you try to solve for an area of need in its whole?
Well, I think that you try and solve for the area of need, but that almost always breaks itself down into its smallest logical parts. And so that gives you your series of deliverables that can help make the journey for the membership better. You're never going to be able to take one foul swoop at stuff and be able to kind of fix everything all in one in one try. So it's really breaking it down into what the individual challenges are and then addressing those things one by one. And that brings about that slow, continuous build towards, a better member experience, really is what we're all striving for.
So I mentioned a little bit earlier that you had some leadership change recently. When you look at providing a rationale for a new investment, how do you go to the rest of the senior management team and present what's going to be an expenditure that many times could be considered a duplication of what is provided by your core provider? How do you build that rationale, being a smaller organization and having limited budget?
Well, I think that part of that really goes back to you need to be listening to the member. And so by taking that member feedback and being able to say, yes, we have this widget, we have this thing that the members are using, but there's, the members may have challenges with it. It may not be intuitive. It may not be easy to use. And so really looking for solutions that are going to be easy for the members to use, easy for them to digest. And that's a great example of that is the relationship that we're building with Eltropy and being able to communicate with members in different ways, right? We'll have that SMS piece. We'll have a more responsive chat than we have right now, because right now our chat lives with our legacy phone system. And so really bringing some of those same communication methods that we have, bringing them into a more updated space, adding more features and functionality like, the ability to exchange secure links and those kinds of things. It's kind of a slow and steady march towards a better end user experience. And that's kind of how I have to sell it back to the rest of the team to say, yes, we have this, but there are challenges with it. It's not being innovated. It's not being updated. And here's an opportunity where we can move to something that is being innovated and updated and is going to end up having a better user experience and better adoption.
Great lead into what my next question was going to be, which was around your collaboration with Pop.io, which is now Eltropy, as you mentioned. What were some of the main considerations when choosing Pop.io at that point as a partner? And now that they've been acquired by Eltropy, what expansions on the entire communication process are you looking to implement it at Team One to make it better for your members?
So our single deliverable in looking at a video solution was recreating the in-branch experience. And that's personalization. That's, being able to relate to the member. That's ease of use. That's all of those things wrapped into one. And actually, another one of the executives here at Team One brought that suggestion back to the table after attending a conference. They had seen a demo of Pop.io and said, hey, let's take a deeper dive into this and see if this is something that we could harness the power of. Now, at that time, when we were making these selections, there were only a few players really that were in that space. And when we viewed all of the available players, the choice was easy because the Pop.io solution really did recreate that in-branch signing experience or support experience. Being able to see the person, being able to capture the documents, being able to do the in-session signing and still have someone like walking you through what you're signing, right? Because you're kind of following along with the member as they're scrolling through the document, and they may have questions on this line, questions on that line. All of that really was what tipped the scales in favor of, Pop.io as our video banking solution. And just as a side note, we have seen our video banking interactions go from about 350 a month at the beginning of the year all the way up to north of 700 a month, by July. So, and we're changing the way we're talking about it. And, with any other technology solution, you can't just put it out there and say, here it is, it's great, and everybody's going to just be drawn to it. What we found is that we just needed to continue to kind of talk to the membership about it, let them know that it's there, and then say, hey, it's here if you need it. If not, great. We'd love to have you come into a branch, have a cup of coffee, talk to the the folks in the branch. But that time you need to be able to talk to somebody, the time you can't make it into the office to get something done, we have this great solution here for you. And that's actually how we close out some of our in-branch sessions. So if the member comes in and they get placed in the video banking room in the kiosk in one of our offices, at the end of that session, we always ask that those folks that are driving the session say, thank you for coming in. We'd love to have you here. But remember, the next time you need some type of support, you've got this same experience right on your phone. So we're able to help regardless.
So to your point, just because you introduce a new capability in your credit union doesn't mean it will be embraced. And not just embraced by the members, but by the employees. Because, we have this underlying situation going on in the branches and throughout a whole organization where people feel like, am I going to be replaced by technology? So how does Team One, how do you introduce major enhancements like video banking to your members? And just as importantly, how do you introduce it to your employees so that they feel comfortable in in embracing and selling that technology to members?
Oh, having employee buy-in is the number one key to success. Um, when we rolled out video banking and we started bringing some of our, we had a certain strategy when we rolled it out. We actually took some of our most tenured member solution specialist folks and brought them into this team. They didn't have to learn anything with this loan document, this IRA form. They were solely focused on learning the technology. And day one of joining the team, they spent pretending to be a member. And that's learning what the member touches and feels on the phone, learning what the member touches and feels in the video banking kiosk rooms, knowing the settings that may need to be changed, getting them comfortable with it, because if they're comfortable with it, they can overcome objections and make that member experience that much better. So getting the employee buy-in is paramount. It's the same thing with our SMS solution that we're rolling out right now. So we actually have access to our live system as of 10/1, but we're not rolling it out to the membership until 11/1. And the reason why is we're going to spend this next 30 days just digging into the system. We're going to have folks pair up and role play. I'll play the member, you play the staff person, and we're just going to become so familiar and ingrained with this. If we can have the staff bring us their concerns and their questions and their apprehension to the system, that only puts us in a better place to be able to handle any concerns from the member.
It's interesting because as you mentioned this is one of the other advantages to your size, because you can actually reach out and touch every employee that's going to touch a member and help them understand the advantages to new technology before it's rolled out, and also make it so they're not threatened by that type of technology. I mean, that types of hands-on ingrained learning would not be possible if an organization with 500 branches, 10,000 branches. I mean, it really gives you the ability to do it on a human nature as opposed to video calls or something like that.
Oh, I was just going to say that's exactly right. You have to be able to get the staff in and comfortable and have them be hands-on. And like I said, their challenges, their apprehensions to embracing the technology revolve around, am I going to be displaced by this? But what a lot of them are finding is, especially with those folks that were those long tenured first people to join into our video banking space, they really found that it's just a new service delivery method. It's a refresh for them, right? They had been sitting in an office in a branch for some of them 20 years doing, in essence, mostly the same type of role. And it was exciting for them to get into this new space and be able to offer this new feature and new technology to the membership. They've just been really excited about it. And as they've come to know the technology, get more comfortable with it, they're actually doing a really good job of embracing it and selling it to the membership and saying, hey, we're here to help you. I'm the same person that was helping you in the office for 20 years. We have history. We can continue that here, and I'll support you as you make the transition into the digital space.
It's interesting. It's the humanization of digital technology as opposed to digital replacing the humans. It's a nuance, but if you can actually sell it to your employees and they buy into it because of the trust factor, it really makes it so the solution, as it has with you, can take off. So what are some other recent innovations you've introduced to Team One, and what are you working on today?
So, the biggest one being that continual evolution of the relationship that we have with Eltropy. But before I get into that one that we have that we've launched right now is something called Member Pass. So we have partnered with Bonify, and we have implemented and are in the process still of growing the number of members that are enrolled. But it's a biometrics secured, FIDO token secured authentication method. So when you call into our communication center, you connect through one of our ITMs, you connect to us through video banking or over a chat, we can send you a text message that contains a link. The link opens in the default browser. That FIDO token is stored on that device and it's protected by that biometric. And that's something that really adds multiple layers of protection, both for the credit union and for the member. We can feel more safe and secure knowing that we're, dealing with the person that we've gone through all the steps to make a solid enrollment into Member Pass, and then we can access their information and serve them more quickly in the future. So that's kind of one thing that we're doing is with that. And then, like I said, on the Ultra piece side, yeah, we're 10/1, we received our system. Like we're spending the next 30 days kind of digging in and learning, making sure the staff understand it inside and out granularly. But that's really only part one. As we get into part two, which will be by the end of the first quarter, that's going to introduce even more features and functionality into that, up to and including, that AI chat bot that we'll have in there that'll be able to be used within the SMS space, within the chat space, and continuing to just enhance those features and functions, that the member can use not only while our doors are open or while our phones are on, but 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
So it's interesting. A lot of your innovation recently is focused on improving the interactions and communications with your members, but taking it to another level, really building greater engagement, and making that engagement easier. It's something we sometimes overlook is actually delivering our services to the customer in a way that's done in the way they want to do it. And you mentioned Eltrapy, and they're a great example of being able to deliver it in many different ways, not just video banking, but in, as you said, new chat functionality using AI. I was at a conference that they recently put on, and we talked quite a bit about how generative AI can really change the communication process, but how you also have to be careful about it. It's one of those things that it's only as good as the people that set it up. Um, are you working on anything with regard to the back office to streamline the back office beyond the communication function, such as new account opening, new loan out openings? Because there's so much to unwrap when you're looking at digital technologies.
Yeah. So of all of those, all of those services and solutions are really kind of being re-examined and streamlined. Again, we can't fix them all at one time or do improvements to them all at one time. Um, but what we have started to do is, like I had taken over the communication center and absorbed them into my e-services department back in, the end of 2019. And so I took those 2 years, really the first year and a half of the pandemic and a little more, to really skill those people up and make them be more of a one-stop shop. We feel like that makes those interactions better. So there's not just a handing off of a call. It's streamlining that member experience, making sure that that one person can kind of take them from start to finish on their journey. That's kind of part of what we're doing to help do that. But yes, along the way, each one of those digital interaction points, innovations come about, changes are needed, regulations change, deliverables change. And so continually going back and updating and making those services and solutions better for the membership. It's really a never ending cycle of updates and changes.
So, how do you gather feedback from members on what new services and technologies that they want? Has there been a piece of feedback over the last few years that really surprised you or led you to maybe make a pivot in strategy?
One very specific example is when we rolled out our video banking kiosks. We went with a what I can only call an arm scanner. So it kind of had an arm that came out and the scanner lens was adjustable. And we thought, oh, this is going to be so great. The members can use it to capture big documents. They can use it to capture driver's licenses. But what we found was the membership wasn't comfortable making those types of adjustments on that scanner. And it ended up being kind of a poor member experience. And so to course correct on that, we kind of went back to the drawing board. And now we have completed a rollout of a new scanning technology that's more along the lines of a traditional document scanner. But we've really kind of we custom made some paper guides that had a lot of really good instruction on them, and tried to ease the member into this new technology. And what we're finding is not only is it a better experience for the staff because they're not trying to have to explain to the member how to use that arm scanner, but it's a way better experience for the member because there's really one button they have to push, and they can't really, they can't do anything else other than that one thing to scan their driver's license or their documents. So that's just one example of where we've, taken that member feedback, identified it, and then tried to move as quickly as possible to just mitigate that challenge.
That's really interesting that we can sometimes over innovate or try to introduce a cool factor when the consumer themselves says, no, just use what we're used to when we vote, or just use what we're used to when we do a scan in our house, or something of that nature. That you sometimes get wowed by the technology and forget the fact that, oh, are we negatively impacting our employees because they have to get more involved than they would have otherwise? So there's so much happening in the banking space in the area of technology and innovation and customer care. What emerging technologies do you see as game changers for smaller credit unions?
I really feel that using AI in a careful way is going to be a game changer for the credit union space because it does allow us to move into more of a 24/7 support model. We've tried some outside call centers before with some success and quite a few challenges being in there as well. And so really trying to craft and listen to the member and craft solutions, and maybe that's AI responses, to make sure that we can support them as best as we can when we're open and when we're closed, and provide quick responses to the things like, what's my routing number, what are your hours here, what is your address, getting that information to them quickly through that AI component, but also not laying the expectation that they have to live in that space, right? We have to give the member an off ramp because, like you say, not everyone is comfortable with that technology. Some folks are going to gravitate away from it. And we have to support you regardless. Like I say, it's the same thing with our video banking solution. We've got this here. You don't have to use it. You can come to us, you can come into the branch, you can call us on the phone, but know that it's there because that one time you really do need to use it, we want you to be comfortable.
Yeah. So, every one of us in the banking industry looks outside of the banking world to see what's going on. So, these last three questions are really more on a personal level. So, where do you look outside financial services for inspiration on what to do next?
I really have to I'm kind of in tune with technology. And ever since I was a little kid, I've been really honed into the technology space. I didn't necessarily come by it naturally, but it's where I excel, I feel. So, I look at all aspects of technology, whether that's innovations in gaming or VR or any of those spaces, really trying to maintain focus on the future and not get caught in the challenges or issues of right now. Those are very important, but you have to maintain a focus on the future so that you're continually trying to see what's coming.
It's interesting. We talk about it often in the podcast, the need to embrace change, take risks, and disrupt yourself in your organization. It's obvious that you do this on a regular basis. It's not just having to do with your credit union or the next service. It's really around the entire feeling of what you're trying to put forth to your members. Because as I mentioned, members are expecting more than ever before, mainly because they know what's possible from all these other areas that you were talking about. On a more personal note, how have the changes that have happened in the technology space in financial services and the challenges in your professional journey shaped you as a leader?
I continue to be humble, and that's kind of the space that I have to operate in. I didn't necessarily set out to be a CTO of a credit union. I have grown into this role, and I think always remembering where I came from and where I started is what keeps me humble, and it helps me maintain a connection to the membership. And that's the key to my success. I can't lose track of all of those experiences and all of those conversations with members that continue to happen. I still do pick up the phone when calls get busy. Wear a lot of hats in a small credit union, and those interactions with the members are really what helps me to maintain my connection and maintain being humble.
It's interesting. I started a management training program for what was then a large bank in Cleveland, Ohio. Still a large bank, but it's very different than it was when I was at a banker. But I started as a teller, moved up to assistant manager, and then moved into some back office functionality and worked in marketing. But it's amazing how often I go back in my memory to what the things were that I learned then to apply them to what I expect as a customer of a financial institution today, but also as it relates to what we can do in a tactical way that's not going to be disruptive. As you said, taking those experiences and saying, I want to apply them as far as how I deploy new technology, what I search for in the technology field, how I work with partner organizations to bring new technologies to the forefront. It's interesting how, especially when I've had so many great conversations with leaders that have been at their organizations for 20, 30 years, how they keep on referring back to the way it was when they first started as they look forward to what's possible. So finally, as we try to wrap this all up, what advice do you give to other modest-sized financial institutions looking to compete effectively digitally?
It all goes back to listening to your member and continuing to look into the future, and not the far off distant future, but see what's coming, see what the landscape is around you, see what the landscape is with fintechs and where they're doing innovations, and then continuing to ask your members, how do you view this technology? How do you view this innovation? That helps you make calculated and careful decisions so that you can continue to evolve the credit union, serve the member in the best way possible.
Well, Tim, I really appreciate the time you spent with us today and appreciate the insights you brought to the table around how you focus so much on making sure that the member experience, no matter how it's deployed, is really effective and easy to embrace from both a customer, but as you mentioned, from an employee perspective. Thanks a lot for being on the show today.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you for listening to the FIsionaries podcast. We hope you enjoy our deep dive into all the tips and tricks that can help you elevate your digital game. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to support the podcast, please share it with others, post it on social media, or leave a thumbs up and comment. This has been a production of Evergreen Podcast. A special thank you to our senior producer, Leah Haslage, and our audio and video engineer, Chris Fafalius. I'm your host, Jim Roos. Until next time, remember, sometimes being a smaller player provides advantages in a world of giants.